Hi everybody, I'm Robert Horton. I'm a member of the National Society of Film Critics and programmer historian in residence at Scarecrow Video. And I want to talk about our next session in Scarecrow Academy, where we meet via Zoom to talk about this year's Academy topic, which is the art in horror, horror and the director. We look at horror movies from the perspective of the art of film directing. We've looked at 10 films and directors so far this year, and we're about to add 5 more to that list, starting up again on Saturday, October 31st at 2 p.m. Pacific time, and proceeding through the end of November. In this little talk here, I'm going to introduce our Halloween Day title. To register for the free Zoom meeting, you can click on a link at the Scarecrow video page, and we'll send you the information you need, including how to watch the movie. Although one way you can watch the movie is by reserving it at Scarecrow and coming to pick it up. Scarecrow is available, open during the pandemic for pickups. So keep that in mind. Our film for October 31st is Don't Look Now from 1973, directed by Nicholas Roeg. We will delve into Roeg's unusual career during the session. A lot to talk about, but the brief version is that he had about 20 years or so working in various parts of the camera department and as a cinematographer before he became a director. To give a measure of how distinctive was Roeg as a cinematographer, consider the fact that in a 4-year period in the 1960s, he worked as the director of photography for David Lean, Roger Corman, Richard Lester, John Schlesinger, and Francois Truffaut. I'm not sure how you get that combination of directors to ask for your services unless you are some kind of truly original visual stylist, and Nicholas Roeg was that. We will talk a little bit about Roeg's debut as a director, which was the film Performance, released in 1970. He actually co-directed it with a very interesting person named Donald Cammell. It's a famously transgressive and experimental feature starring Mick Jagger. For his next movie, Roeg went to Australia to make Walkabout, a kind of a classic art house cinema title of that era. And then he made Don't Look Now. So he was clearly at the height of his powers when he came to this horror movie. Don't Look Now is adapted from a story by Daphne du Maurier, who is also furnished the basis for one of our previous films in this series, The Birds. 2 big movie stars of the time, Christie and Donald Sutherland, play the story's married couple. They're visiting Venice just after the death of their daughter. Christie had, by the way, had starred in 3 films that Nicholas Roeg had photographed during the 1960s. So we'll maybe focus on 2 aspects of the directing art that are much on display in Don't Look Now. And I think are characteristic of Roeg's work overall. One is sort of obvious if you're thinking about a cinematographer who becomes a director, and that is an inclination toward visual storytelling. And this is indeed the case with Roeg. Venice is never a tourist postcard view of the city in this film. It's always a strange, kind of disorienting place that I think we can conclude is the subjective point of view of the characters, maybe particularly Donald Sutherland's character. He may be having psychic visions during the movie. So the combination of camera movement, of color, specific locations is sort of intoxicating, and I think the story and mood demand that kind of intoxication. Roeg cares deeply about color. He did as a cinematographer before he became a director. So the movie's deployment of the color red, color that we might associate with blood or violence or passion in general terms, specifically here gets associated with the death of the daughter early in the film. So it's very precise and terrifying use of red in this film. The other aspect to think about we wouldn't automatically associate it maybe with cinematographer, but that is the film's sense of fragmentation. The pieces of the story not only seeming to be broken like a mosaic, which plays a role in the movie too, but also capable of moving back and forth in time. And in this, Roeg was picking up on a movement that was already happening in movies in the 1960s, when the idea of the classical model of clean, linear, invisible editing was being broken apart by filmmakers who seem to be saying that things were coming apart, the center could no longer hold, and so movies should begin to take different forms. People like Alain Resnais in France, Sam Peckinpah in Hollywood, many others were sort of exploring those kinds of fragmentation. Another such director was Richard Lester, and his film Petulia had embodied that style, including some of the back and forth in time thing, and that film was photographed by Nicholas Roeg, and of course starred Julie Christie. These ideas would stay with Roeg throughout his career, before and after Don't Look Now. Performance is certainly a film in pieces, and so is his follow-up film to Don't Look Now, which was the science fiction movie The Man Who Fell to Earth, starring David Bowie. This principle is evident in the movie's most famous scene, or most notorious scene, or however you want to put it. Very different kind of lovemaking scene, indicative of the new permissiveness of the early 1970s. It's famous partly because of the long-standing rumor that Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland were, actually doing it during the filming of the scene, which is something that has been debunked by everybody who's involved with the making of the film, but sort of spice things up for a while, I guess. And maybe it says something about how convincing the scene is that anybody would believe that. But it shouldn't overshadow the other interesting element of that sequence, which is that Roeg intercuts the sex with the after sex. We see the lovemaking at the same time that we see the two people putting their clothes on afterwards and folding the bed sheets and getting ready to go and so on. The mundane sitting side by side with the passionate. Roeg is collapsing time, which may be appropriate to a story about people who are trapped in a kind of present tense of grief. So we'll begin with these elements and see where the conversation goes from there. Happy Halloween, and we'll see you on October 31st at 2 p.m. for another session of The Art in Horror, and Don't Look Now.